rehabilitated, and real entertaining. This is the Carl Jackson Podcast.
All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show podcast on this Thursday, October 20th. Man, election day is less than 3 weeks away. I'm so excited. I hope you're excited as well. Here's what I want to talk to you about today. Democrats are phonies. We all know it. But what I'm talking about specifically today is Dems were the election deniers before, or actually, I should say when it was cool. So Democrats were election deniers when it was cool. When it was cool for the media, when it was cool for the left. Election deniers, election deniers, election deniers. That's who the Democrat Party, that's who they were. That's who they are. Some of them still are. Stacey Abrams, Hillary Clinton. We'll go through a litany of names and people that conspire together on the left to undermine the 2016 election and actually give you a brief history, modern history, if you will, thanks to Victor Davis Hanson of AM Greatness, of all of the election deniers on the left. That way, when your friends, your homies, your family members say, what are you, an election denier? You can say, no, actually, remember you were, because I guarantee you they were singing the same tune as Hillary Clinton, Stacey Abrams, and a plethora of other people on the left that we will mention. So before I get into that, however, I want to ask you to please subscribe to the podcast wherever podcasts are found. That is Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble. Please, we need to build up Rumble. We need to build up YouTube as well. So just find us, The Carl Jackson Show, in those places. Follow me also on social media, wherever I am found, The Carl Jackson Show. Find me on Twitter. I think I'm just Carl Jackson on Twitter, Carl Jackson Show, actually, on Twitter. But please follow me on Twitter on all social media, The Carl Jackson Show or Carl Jackson Show, like I said, on Twitter. But also, help support our friend Mike Lindell, the juggernaut that he is, the American businessman, American jobs, American manufacturing. There's now exclusively for my podcast listeners, you already know about the Percale and Giza Dream Sheets that are as low as $29.98 for my listeners at this point in time. Pretty amazing deal. There's also a 3-piece towel set that's available. The set is made with USA cotton. It's extremely absorbent and it's soft. I mean, these towels are absolutely amazing. There's now a set of 1 bath towel, 1 hand towel, and 1 washcloth. Normally they sell for $49.99, but for my listeners, they're $19.98. And these come with a 10-year warranty, 60-day money-back guarantee. You can't beat that with a bat. So please visit my friends at mypillow.com. Click on that radio listener square. Use the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L, por favor, or you can give them a call. How'd you like my Spanish there, Gabe? Or you can give them a call at 1-800-858-0263, 1-800-858-0263. Use that promo code Carl to get all available discounts provided by My Pillow and the great people, and Mike Lindell and the great people at My Pillow. All right. So I want to get into the topic at hand. Before I do, I like to bring you a little bit of the news for the day. You know what's funny about broadcasting, whether it's a podcast or whether I'm doing radio, and I'll be on Officer Tatum's show filling in for him again tonight. So please check me out. Actually, tonight and tomorrow night as well. But every morning, I go through tons of websites, or several websites, I should say, including a tip sheet that we get. And I'll go through, I'll read that. I'll read through Real Clear Politics, see some of the headlines there, some of the columns that exist there, Daily Wire, Just the News, Breitbart, The Blaze, Conservative Review, you name it. I'll go through a lot of these things, National Review, you name it. I go through a lot of sites. I'll even go to Real Clear Politics and I'll pick out some liberal headlines at times and stuff like that just to see what they're talking about, know what they're talking about. But ultimately, you just have to narrow down subjects or narrow down your show to a subject. All right. So that's the most difficult part about this stuff. And I love it all. It's all fun. I love researching, but it's the funniest thing. But I go through all of these things and then I just talk about one thing or so. And I'm like, what I like to share with you are just some of the things that stood out to me or some of the things that are on the tip sheet that I know will be talked about at some point in the news. And so I'm just going to do that. You'll hear a lot of people talking about them, I'm sure. So here's one. Jeff Bezos tells us to prepare for a recession. Jeff Bezos is the head of Amazon. Obviously, I think he's the second richest person in the world, I believe, at this point. Okay, I actually think that story is an insult. I don't need Jeff Bezos to tell me that we need to prepare for a recession when we're already in a recession. I'm tired of these elites telling us that we're so dumb that we don't know that a recession is defined as two consecutive quarters of economic decline in regards to our GDP. We've had that. We've literally just had 3 quarters of economic decline. So I don't need Jeff Bezos to tell me that. Nonetheless, he's telling the low information voters to brace for themselves over the next 12 months. Let me tell you what bothers me about that. And this is what Republicans better damn sure be aware of and make sure they're prepared for, because the narrative is going to shift as soon as they win the House. And I do believe they're going to win the House, and with your help, they're going to win the Senate as well. But as soon as they win the House, as soon as they win the Senate, what the media is going to start doing right away, and what the Democrat Party is going to start doing right away, because things are going to get worse. Guys, I want you to understand that things are going to get worse. What we're going to be able to do in November is slow them down so that we're all not totally living on the poorhouse or on the streets or dead from famine. All right. So that's what we're trying to stop in November. But I'm just telling you the truth. Things are going to get worse. And what they're going to do is try to blame all of that on Republicans. So Republicans better be ready to draft legislation, to throw it on Biden's desk and make him veto it. But they better be ready to put their faces in the media, open their freaking mouths, and frame the narrative headed up to 2024. This is one of the reasons, and actually, I think it's one of the most important reasons that Trump and or whomever is going to be running for president, but I think Trump is probably going to be the most effective, although Larry Elder, if he does run, would be very effective of this as well, but setting the narrative heading into 2024, because what the left is going to try to do when things get worse financially and all this kind of stuff, they're going to try to blame Republicans. And Jeff Bezos isn't beneath that because he owns the Washington Post, the left-wing rag. We all know this story. You heard of it yesterday, or Biden announced that he's releasing oil barrels from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. He says that it's not politically motivated at all. Okay. None of us believe that, so I'm just going to move on. The DC passes a bill allowing illegal aliens to vote in local elections. Well, if DC is going to pass a bill to allow, and they have a 12-1 vote, as a matter of fact, if they're going to allow illegal aliens to vote in their district, then maybe we should send all of the illegal aliens that are invading our country right to Washington, D.C. and completely flood the zone. Another story or headline, U.S.-Mexico to propose international security assistance mission in Haiti and civil unrest. Fox News has reported this. The U.S. and Mexico will introduce a resolution at the UN to deploy a, quote, non-UN international security assistance mission, close quote, to Haiti to restore order on the island nation, which has been terrorized by roving gangs in the wake of former President Jovenel Moise's assassination last year. Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry requested a specialized armed force, quote unquote, earlier this month to assist Haiti's national police in confronting the gangs. Linda Thomas Greenfield, the U.S. ambassador to the UN, said at a Security Council meeting on Monday that the new proposal is, quote, in direct response to Henry's request. Yeah, I'm sure what's going to happen there is I won't doubt if the Clinton Foundation shows up there. Do you? We still have a baby shortage formula 8 months later, or baby formula shortage 8 months later. Were you guys aware of that? Well, if you're not a mother of a newborn baby, you may not be aware of that. But what does that say, man? 8 freaking months, and we still have a shortage. This stuff isn't in the news. This is what the left doesn't want you to know. The Democrats and the Biden administration they've been completely disastrous, completely. The Democrat plan for inflation is to ignore it. As a matter of fact, Stacey Abrams, I'll play this later, she basically said, listen, people need to understand that babies are so expensive, they can cause inflation. I'm paraphrasing. The lady is a nut. She's going to lose big time. Why? Because fake racism is dead in 2022. I think it is all over for Stacey Abrams, meaning she's going to lose the gubernatorial race and likely announce for the presidency because Democrats fell upward. So just something to keep in mind. The CDC panel is to hold a final vote on adding COVID vaccine to recommended childhood vaccination schedule. Are they cray-cray? I'm sorry. If you're giving your kids a vaccine at this point, given the information that you can go out and research for yourself, you are crazy. You are crazy. There is no way. I mean, I'm reading stories left and right. I just read a couple earlier on Daily Wire where this football player, 18-year-old, just dropped dead. Another kid in the high school choir. And listen, obviously this is presumption on my part. But listen, I'm reading stories weekly. As a matter of fact, almost daily at this point, where somebody very young, and it seems oftentimes to be males that are participating in some type of activity that really gets their heart rate going, are just dropping dead. It's insane. Now, maybe these stories existed like this for years and I just never paid attention, but it seems to me that whenever I start researching, I'm finding story after story after story of some young person or even middle-aged person just dropping dead. Unbelievable. The Democrat Senate candidate's past comments come back to haunt her just before the midterms. All right, this is the North Carolina Democratic Senate candidate, Cherry Beasley. I'm not going to get into that. She's going to lose. And the lady has said some stupid stuff and has done some silly stuff. All right, Putin declares martial law in Ukraine captured regions. Vladimir Putin has declared martial law in 4 occupied regions and given security forces sweeping powers and assigned the Russian president is struggling to regain the military initiative nearly 8 months into the invasion of Ukraine. It goes on to say the move, which includes broad restrictions on travel, including vehicle checks and economic mobilization, quote unquote, in much of Western and Southern Russia, is Putin's latest escalation as his army continues to cede ground to Ukraine. Now, I got to tell you guys this. I read this story and I can't help but to sit here and say, or this headline, but I can't help but to sit here and say, we should have never got to this point. We all know what was happening where Putin was organizing his military at the border of Ukraine. And if Biden and the Democrat Party wanted to, what they could have done, since they run the House of Representatives and they run the Senate, they should have kept their big mouths shut. And if they wanted to give Zelensky all of the weaponry, no extra money, no bells and whistles, just the weaponry he needed in order for Ukraine to defend, or Ukrainians to defend themselves, they could have done that from the onset. So the fact that they're still using this story, and I was one where, listen, I do believe that there should be a buffer between Ukraine and our NATO allies. All right, I believe that sincerely. But what's going on there is a travesty. It has been handled horribly. We all know that there's corruption. So that's why there should have been just military. It should have been military weaponry, period, sent there so that they could fight. Not all this money where we don't know where it's going. We're paying for the benefits and the pensions of some government officials in Ukraine. No doubt erasing Biden's history of corruption in Ukraine, in my opinion, absolutely unbelievable. So those are many of the big headlines in the news today. A lot of election, polling and all that kind of stuff as we get closer and closer to the midterm election. It's going to get very, very, very exciting. Georgia early voting surpassing 2020. Surpassing 2020. I'll get into that briefly. All right. So here we go. Let's get started here. Let's talk about the topic of the day. And again, phonies the Democrats are. The Democrats were election deniers when it was cool. Hat tip Victor Davis Hanson of American greatness. All right. So is Trump's denial of the accuracy of the 2020 election really unprecedented? I think all of us know the answer to that, and the answer is no. Unfortunately, the history of U.S. elections is often riddled with both legitimate and illegitimate claims. That's just the way it is. Election denialism, that's human nature. Your side loses, you're like, hey, Hey, what happened? I mean, sometimes it's obvious, like, all right, Barack Obama, John McCain, who didn't see that coming? And I'm so sick and tired of the people that said, oh, he would have won. John McCain would have won were it not for Sarah Palin. Are you crazy? Are you insane? The only reason that I held my nose for John McCain is because Sarah Palin was on the ticket. And everyone, literally everyone that I knew around me, the only reason they were willing to vote for John McCain was because of Sarah Palin. And I hear people still to this day at times, conservatives and or Republicans, well, John McCain wouldn't have done squat. The guy he didn't even understand the economy. He didn't understand how the economy worked. And when the economy started tanking, or at least the narrative was as such right before the election, he didn't know what to say. Absolutely insane. Sarah Palin. As a matter of fact, just a quick side note here. I was looking through video this morning as well in my research. And, I for some reason, Drill Baby Drill came to mind when I was thinking of what Biden is doing, trying to replenish. He's trying to replenish the strategic petroleum reserve, but he's waiting until prices drop to $72 a barrel. Who knows when that's going to come? Right now, we're at about, I think it's approximately $90 a barrel. Trump was topping off the strategic petroleum reserve when barrels of oil were in the mid 20s. All right. That's how far we've come. But it's so funny because in 2010, Sarah Palin, in a speech she was given leading up to the midterms, she said, drill, baby, drill. That was a phrase that she mentioned in her speech. And she talked about all of the resources that we had at our disposal in American territory, on American lands, and all that good stuff. And I mean, she was mocked. She was ridiculed, as the left always does. And it's so funny. I mean, she was spot on. You're talking about over 12 years ago. She was spot on. And now it's so the left was mocking her, laughing at her. But you know who's getting the laugh? Putin and Xi Jinping. And she specifically talked about how these dictators, we shouldn't be ceding all of this power to dictators and asking dictators for oil when we have plenty of resources right here in the United States. Spot on. 12 years ago, the lady was laughed. The lady was mocked. The truth is, the left feared her just like they fear Trump now. And that's why they will continue to try to destroy anyone on the right that they absolutely fear. When the left tries to destroy someone on the right, it isn't necessarily because they disagree per se in all aspects. It's not necessarily that they dislike. It's because they fear what their policies will do. They fear that person on the right will beat them in an election or change course in American history where the left will be obsolete. All right. So there were 4 presidential elections that were deservedly questioned. One was in 1800, another 1824, another 1876, and of course the election between JFK and Richard Nixon of 1960, when people believed that Nixon really won that election, but he chose not to question it for the sake of the country. We all know about Al Gore in 2020. He didn't accept the popular vote results in Florida. By the way, he lost his own state, if I recall correctly, of Tennessee. The guy just was not as popular. He was fake. He was phony. Came off as such. He spent 5 weeks contesting the results of the Florida state's tally, where finally the court said, man, dude, we've had enough. You lost. Get over it. All right. So finally, after 5 recounts, was it 5 I think it was 3 recounts. I'm sorry. The Supreme Court certified the election result in Florida. And then you go to George W. Bush. You guys once George W. Bush was in, the left said forever, oh, he was selected, not elected. That's why I call Joe Biden the selected president of the United States today. Yes, I'm going tit for tat with the Democrats. Call me immature. I don't care. But it's true. It isn't true. I believe it to be true. Were it not for the rigged elections of 2020, I don't believe that Joe Biden would be in the White House. If Molly Hemingway of The Federalist writes about this beautifully in her book, Rigged. But I mean, honestly, the Democrats have been rigging elections for 40 years, and the Republican Party has been bending over and taking it. It's insane. When you read her book, you just get mad. Honestly, you just get mad. But we allowed the same to happen in 2020, where all of these, these blue states were able to go rig the elections. They got into the courts. They got all of these, a special elections were able to operate differently because of COVID. All of these emergency rules that they passed. I'll talk about that tonight on Tatum's show, and it was just absolutely disgusting. But again, George W. Bush, selected, not elected. That's what the Democrat Party said. We go back to Al Gore. All right, he was the OG election denier, in my opinion. And then in 2004, you had Senator Barbara Boxer and 31 House members, including the infamous Benny Thompson, the Democrat of Mississippi, who is now on the J6 committee, right? Still trying to deny, I would argue, Trump an election in 2024. So that's what's happening. And then after 2016, the Democrats had insisted that Trump colluded with Russia to steal the victory from Hillary Clinton. All right. So that's when being election deniers were cool. Hillary Clinton, as a matter of fact, said that Trump wasn't a legitimate president. Then she joined the resistance. Remember that? The hashtag the resistance on Twitter. Hillary Clinton joined the resistance movement. Is she an election denier? It must have been cool then. She also argued for or urged Biden not to concede the election in 2020. She urged Biden. Actually, what she was doing, let's be real, she was hoping that fool would lose. She was hoping that the Democrat Party wouldn't go in for her, so she could be the nominee in 2024. But she may still be. Then you got Jill Stein. She was a third party candidate, and she was a denialist. She sued in the courts to disqualify voting machines and voting machine results in pre-selected states that would have benefited her. You guys might remember a group of C-list Hollywood actors. They came out with a video in 2016, and they cut television commercials where basically they were talking about or they were actually begging members of the Electoral College to violate their oaths instead of flip the election to Hillary Clinton. I mean, absolutely amazing. And then here's another act of election denialism. Hillary Clinton hired former British spy Christopher Steele to concoct the Steele dossier. Isn't that amazing? She wanted to smear Donald Trump at the time. The FBI then bribed Christopher Steele, or attempted to bribe Christopher Steele, with $1 million. Later, they paid Igor Danchenko. Some reports say as much as $200,000, and some go as high as $500,000. I'm not exactly sure which, to try to verify the claims in the fake dossier that the Hillary Clinton campaign paid for. And then the FBI, they were a bunch of election deniers because they lied to the FISA court in order, about the authenticity of the dossier. And then an FBI lawyer, a guy by the name of Michael Sussman, even altered one of the documents as part of the government effort to disrupt the presidential transition in 2016, 2017, at the time when Trump was taking office. Were they a bunch of election deniers? Of course they were. They did not want or like the results of that election in 2016. Then the Clinton FBI Russia collusion hoax was a small part of the progressive effort to warp the 2016 election result. We know that. Also, Washington Post, there's our man Jeff Bezos again. They got into it, right? They bragged about various groups that were formed to impeach Trump in his first days in office, on the pretext he was illegitimately elected. So the Washington Post, a bunch of election deniers. No one's talking about it because that's when election denialism was cool. And then there was Rosa Brooks. You guys know Rosa Brooks? You guys remember her? No, I didn't either. But Rosa Brooks, she was an Obama administration Pentagon lawyer. And then less than 2 weeks after Trump's inauguration, she wrote a long denialist essay in Foreign Policy outlining a strategy to remove the supposedly illegitimate president. She discussed the options of impeachment, the 25th Amendment, and even a military coup. He had just been in for weeks. And the left tried all of this. 2 impeachments. They bellowed about the 25th Amendment every opportunity they got. You see Milley undermining the president of the United States, former President Donald Trump. What about Madonna? You guys remember Madonna? Madonna, when rioting happened across Washington, D.C. streets because Trump won, after the election results, Madonna shouted to a mass crowd that she dreamed of blowing up the White House. You guys remember that? She was denying the results of the election. Presumably, she wanted the White House to blow up with Trump in it. And then there's Stacey Abrams, Gabe's homegirl. Stacey Abrams became the media darling of the left by denying that she lost the gubernatorial election in Georgia in 2018. She even monetized it, talking about voter suppression. She stumped across the country for 2 or 3 years talking about voter suppression. No evidence whatsoever that the election in 2018 in Georgia was rigged, and she's going to get her butt spanked this year. I truly do believe that. They're going to try to treat like crazy in the Atlanta area, but I think she's going to get her butt kicked. I think people are just over the fake racism. I think people are a lot more concerned about crime and inflation, whether or not they can put food on their on their tables. I think they're a lot more concerned about that, whether or not their children are being brainwashed and K through 12, actually pre-K through 12 at this point, all the way up through college and even into corporate America. There's no real world when you get into the workforce anymore because corporate America has turned woke as well. It's sad. But Stacey Abrams, she lost by 50,000 votes in 2018. And I think it's going to be a much larger number, in my opinion, this year. This I forgot about. I can't believe I forgot about this. And Victor Davis Hanson brought it back to my attention. You guys remember the Time magazine's Molly Ball? Molly Ball bragged in an essay in 2020 that a combination of big tech, money from Silicon Valley, and fueled by Mark Zuckerberg and $419 million infusion in cash absorbed the balloting collection and counting of several key voting precincts. That he poured in this money to help out Joe Biden. He gave some to Republicans, but he gave exponentially more to the Democrat Party and some of these swing state areas in particular, so that they could organize. Right? They saw what was coming. They saw what was coming. Trump was going to be reelected, even though, listen, there is an argument that could be made the moment that Trump shut down the economy, that he lost the election. But it looked like the economy was coming back to life. Trump was waiting to announce that the vaccines were ready to go against COVID. Pfizer refused to announce it until after the election. And then once he lost, Pfizer announced it. Molly Ball of the Times Magazine even bragged of the careful pre-election censoring of the contemporary news big tech. Most notably, Victor Davis Hanson said that effort spread the lie that the Hunter Biden laptop scandal was just Russian disinformation. Man, the left stoked and exploited supporters of Black Lives Matter, Antifa as well, getting them all mad, having them protest in the street. They were denying what was going to happen. They presumed what was going to happen in November. They wanted to scare people away from the ballot box. And then Ball summed up the left-wing election engineering effort as a conspiracy, quote, a conspiracy unfolding behind the scenes, close quote, and called it the secret history of the 2020 election. She admitted it. These were the secret warpers of the 2020 election. As Ball put it, and I quote, a well-funded cabal of powerful people ranging across industries and ideologies working together behind the scenes to influence perceptions, change rules and laws, steer media coverage, and control the flow of information. That's what they did. That's how they beat Trump in 2020. Unfreaking believable. They changed rules and laws leading up to the election so that people would be able to vote, mass mail-in balloting, all this kind of nonsense. We saw election day turn into election season. You guys, listen to this. I've forgotten about so much of this. Over 100 million ballots were not cast on election day. The vast majority of them by design. Biden votes. So by design, they were Biden votes. So 100 million not cast on election day. Man, somehow customary ballot disqualification rates of mail-in ballots in some states plunge. So, normally ballots that would have been disqualified for a plethora of reasons were accepted, even as their numbers continue to explode. you just have to remember what happened. The FBI, Silicon Valley, street protesters, the media all conspired against us in the 2020 election. Those were the real election deniers. It wasn't Trump. It wasn't Trump. It was all of these people that conspired against the man. Absolutely insane. Now, let me just share this quick bit of information for you, because I talked about Stacey Abrams. I mean, she was the media darling, or she has been the media darling, but she's going to lose. We'll see what happens with her in the future. But what was she whining and complaining about? She was talking about voter suppression. Well, had to be AM greatness again. Georgia sets early voting record, debunking criticisms of the new voting law. So as early voting began in the state of Georgia, the state already saw a new record number on Monday. I think there were 100,000 ballots cast on Monday. Yeah, according to Reason Magazine, over 100,000 Georgians voted early on Monday. That was a new state record for the first day of an early voting period. Where's the voter suppression? Where's the voter suppression, Stacey Abrams? Previously, the number of Georgians who cast a vote in the state's May primary was already more than twice as many as the number of voters in the 2018 primaries. I don't think this bodes well. I don't think this bodes well for the left. Now, one would say that if Biden was doing well and the numbers were so high, then you know this would be going well for the Democrat Party. But Biden is doing horribly. Democrats are doing horribly. Their policies stink. Crime is up. Open borders. I mean, fentanyl deaths. You name it. Resources being drained. Project Veritas came out with a video where some New Yorker admitted that their resources were being completely drained. As a result of the illegal aliens that were coming in to the state of New York. It was taking a toll. So here are some of the things that Stacey Abrams claims were election and integrity issues or caused voter suppression. But first, before I do, let me tell you what happened. Last year, you guys may recall, Georgia state legislature passed SB 202. That's known as the Election Integrity Act of 2021. And what they tried to do is curb controversial voting practice that have been known to be vulnerable to fraud. And it was signed into law by Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. The law mostly reverses. All it does is reverse pandemic era changes. So all of the changes that we made during the emergency, when Biden still has the emergency powers, but his state was running under those emergency powers. All they did was they went back to things that they were doing back in the day. So the law, before COVID. So the law significantly, here's what it does, reduces the number of ballot drop boxes in the state, including in the four large counties that make up the area of Atlanta. That's the state's biggest, where the state saw its biggest number of drop boxes, and it plunged from 94 in that area to 23. There's still some drop boxes. I don't think there should be any drop boxes allowed, especially if they're unguarded or there's no video, there's no live camera feed where, everybody and their mother can check out what's happening there. The law also implemented new restrictions on the absentee ballot system, reducing the total number of people who are able to request such a ballot. It also stripped the Secretary of State, Raffensperger, of many election-related powers, including the office as place as chairman and a voting member of the state election board. The state election board has more authority to suspend election officials at both the state and county levels that they suspect of corruption or political bias, and they can replace them with temporary appointments. So these are some of the things that Georgia has done to make elections more secure. Another thing that they've done, which I didn't see here, they just modified. Listen, if you're waiting in line, nobody from a campaign can come up to you to give you food or water or whatever, because they're trying to bribe you at that point, right? So that should be an obvious thing. If you're at a precinct and they happen to have water or something at the door that you can grab, you bring your own, then you're absolutely fine. But somebody, let's say, stumping for Stacey Abrams, you're sitting there, you're thinking about voting for Brian Kemp. They can't bring you a bottle of water. Hey, vote for Stacey Abrams. This is from Stacey Abrams' campaign. You know what I mean? They can't do that. That makes total common sense. And listen, bring your own freaking water when you go to the polls. That's the way that I see it. All right, guys, listen, I appreciate you tuning in to this edition of the Carl Jackson Show podcast. I hope you'll join me tonight or check out the Officer Tatum show tonight. Please follow me on social media, wherever I am on social media, the Carl Jackson Show. Make sure you put the word "the" in front. Also, check out my podcast. Subscribe to my podcast. I need more of you to subscribe. YouTube.com, also Rumble.com. Wherever you find our podcast, please subscribe. Apple, Google, Spotify, you name it. And please be sure to support our friends at MyPillow and support Mike Lindell, providing American jobs, American manufacturing. It's a good thing, and giving you a good night's rest. So please support them and support American companies wherever you can buy American goods, or at least goods from allies. Please, please support businesses like Mike Lindell. You can take advantage of the Giza Dream sheets, and the Perkel bed sheets, now on special for $29.98. Take advantage of the 3-piece towel set. You got a hand towel, a bath towel, body towel. Normally sell for $49.99. You use my promo code Carl. They'll give them to you for $19.98. All right. So 1-800-858-0263, 1-800-858-0263. Use the promo code Carl, or you can go online, mypillow.com. Click on the radio listener square, enter that promo code Carl. Make sure you take advantage of those great deals. Guys, I cannot wait till Election Day. I'm getting so excited. We're going to have some guests coming up in the next couple of weeks. We haven't had a lot of guests. Frankly, my producer was out of town for a while, and then things have just been extremely hectic between the podcast and filling in for Tatum and other hosts. But we're getting back on track here, so we will have some guests coming up. But I'm glad that I've been able to spend some time with you. And I look forward to doing spending more time with you as time goes on. And I look forward to enjoying the victories. Praise God. On November 8th, we're going to have some victories. We're going to celebrate. I'm ready to have a party on November 9th, but you can't take your feet off the gas. All right, guys, until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.